Hi, I'm meteorologist Trey Fulbright. For the last few years, I put together a severe weather recap and storm chase video. This year's severe weather began in 2023 with my first storm chase in eastern Iowa in January. Sit back and relax as I take you through this year's incredible storm chasing moments in my 2023 video entitled Convection. There are multiple vortices, multiple scud fingers under that. There's a large destructive tornado in progress. We've had the debris signature as high as 14,000 feet on the ground, 13 miles southeast of Stratford, Texas. That's on the ground. Tornado on the ground. Tornado on the ground crossing I-80 right now near Newton. We got a ground circulation.
Look at that thing, it's, oh my God!
And it's spinning. Look at the RFD cut.
Look at that thing. Beautiful.
My first chase of the year was one I certainly did not anticipate, especially for this part of the country. Two tornadoes occurred in east central Iowa in some of the most marginal conditions that are available for tornado development. To have tornadoes in Iowa in January is extremely rare and practically a generational occurrence. The last January tornadoes to occur in the state were on January 24, 1967, with no known pictures of the tornado. On January 16th, broad southwest low aloft was in place over the Plains states with long wave troughing to the west and ridging over the southeast. A negatively tilted shortwave trough transitioned into a cold core upper level low as it moved northeast toward Iowa. This feature generated rising, diverging, and diffluent air aloft, leading to low pressure formation at the surface with an associated warm front and cold front that lifted northeast with the upper level low. Leading up to the event, two of the main forecast uncertainties were if cloud cover was going to clear and if low levels would moisten enough. These two factors would play a role in allowing the development of low-level buoyancy, allowing for parcels of air to rise from the surface into very cold air aloft. It became evident that skies were going to clear as a mid-level dry slot wrapped into the cyclone. Shallow or low-top thunderstorms developed in the skinny warm sector and began to exhibit signs of rotation. The day began overcast, but as the mid-level dry slot wrapped in from the southwest, skies began to clear outside of my location in southeast Des Moines by 10 a.m. As the low pressure and its associated surface boundaries lifted northeast, we noticed an arc of towering cumulus developing in southern Iowa. These would soon become the low-top supercell storms of the day, eventually producing tornadoes. Meteorologist Dave Downey and I hauled it east toward Oskaloosa by 11 a.m. Our initial plan was to follow the arc of thunderstorms forming near the triple point, or where the cold front, warm front, and occluded boundaries met up. These storms showed initial signs of weak rotation with rain-free bases and weakly rotating wall clouds. However, as the storms got closer to New Sharon, they soon crossed over the triple point back into the colder air and became elevated and outflow dominant. Our strategy would have to change as we'd have to follow and track closer toward a storm forming deeper into the warm sector. As As we're driving east, a second cell forms deeper within the warm sector to the southeast of the triple point. This storm is exposed to better thermodynamics and low-level shear and will soon produce the Williamsburg tornado. The storm already has better visual characteristics of a large rain-free base and tilted updraft.
Look at that rising.
Yeah. There's another area back there too. Spinning big time. Oh, it's trying hard. As we're driving east, a large rotating wall cloud appears just to the southwest of town. This is the storm's first attempt at tornado genesis. We can go right into it. After passing through Williamsburg, we emerge back east with a rapidly rotating wall cloud and rising scud filaments associated with the mesocyclone. Tornado genesis is imminent.
Right there, yep. Is this scud? Come on, Sorrento, you gotta go faster. Tornado on the ground is heading right towards Cedar Rapids. That's it.
After the mesocyclone passes directly over us, a large tornado eventually touches down just to the south of I-80. This is our view along County Road F46 east of Williamsburg, looking north as the tornado was crossing over I-80.
Yeah, it is. It's tapping into the 3 Cape. I think it lifted.
Yeah, it's spinning rapidly under. Look at there are multiple vortices, multiple scud fingers under that. By this point, the short-lived tornado has crossed to the north of I-80. By this point, it is difficult to tell if there is a ground circulation. Still, there is a rapidly rotating wall cloud with a funnel and multiple scud filaments underneath it. If you want, we could. Well, we might need to. Are you getting good video?
Not bad video. There's going to be another road option to go north here. It's, oh my God!
That is spinning. Look at the RFD cut.
Look at that thing.
When we get to the top of this hill, we will see it. We are making history, man. By this point, we have turned north onto Highway 151, traveling north toward I-80. A large wall cloud and funnel are still seen in this part of the video. The brightening of the cloud is from the rear flank downdraft that is wrapping around the circulation. Increasing light. I would keep going north.
I agree. Beautiful tornado. Temps upper 40s, low 50s, still producing.
Look at that back to the southeast. It's trying to reorganize.
This supercell eventually moves off to the northeast toward the Cedar Rapids area where tornado warnings are continued. A brief and weak tornado occurs just to the southwest of Cedar Rapids before the storm ultimately moves back into colder, stable air. Southeast of this low pressure and ahead of this cold front, medium to high amounts of potential energy and very strong wind shear will be in place, allowing for that threat of severe weather. This is as clear cut as it gets. There is a large destructive tornado in progress. We've had the debris signature as high. From March 31st to April 1st, the largest and most destructive tornado outbreak of the year occurred. A total of 147 tornadoes were confirmed. This outbreak produced the third greatest number of tornadoes in 24 hours behind the 1974 super outbreak. On the morning of the 31st, a well-pronounced negatively tilted shortwave trough ejected from the Rockies into the plains. Rounding the base of the trough toward the front side of the trough was a massive 80 to 100 knot jet max. The shortwave deepened and eventually reached maturity, closing off as it moved into the upper Midwest. Synoptically speaking, the dynamics for a severe weather outbreak could not be more textbook. The jet max moved toward the Mississippi River, overspreading a large warm sector. Central and eastern Iowa were in the left exit region of the jet with strong upper-level diffluence and divergence. This led to the formation of a rapidly deepening surface low that created a very favorable wind field and brought in the moisture and instability for numerous severe storms. Initially, most of the storms were supercells producing large hail, but as low-level instability maximized, moisture increased, cloud bases lowered, and surface and low-level atmospheric winds backed, the environment became primed for long-track, violent tornadoes between Des Moines and Iowa City by 3 to 4 p.m. The March 31st outbreak was my first time working a high-risk event as a broadcast meteorologist.
I think the greatest risk here across parts of central Iowa is going to be from damaging straight line winds. That's because our winds are a little bit more unidirectional, meaning they're not changing as much direction. But over in the parts of eastern Iowa where you see a little bit more turning of the winds with height, that's where we may see a higher tornado threat. Last time any part of Iowa was under a high risk was back in June of 2014. And the last high risk that was issued nationally was back in 2021. So these are not issued lightly. These are not issued often either. This is kind of a rare deal.
That afternoon, meteorologists Chris Gloniger, Jason Sadeko, Zane Satchery, and I provided nearly 5 hours of tornado coverage from 12:30 through roughly our 5 p.m. news.
Watch that initial batch. Again, we'll have to keep a close eye on any of these storms that cross the Missouri border for tornadic development. And then we get that secondary wave just west of 35 that forms. That's going to continue to march eastward 4 p.m. That's pretty much mirroring 35. If you have plans to head north on 35, east on
US
80
30 at University, just west of Ames right now. The camera's kind of glitching in and out, but we're watching this camera very closely because that large hail core is about to go right over US 30, and that cell is really starting to ramp up there. So over Iowa State University here, getting some really good indication of large hail and going right through the center of town there, and where you kind of have that weakness in there. That is what we call a bounded weak echo region, and all that means is that the storm has a very strong updraft. There's air that is rushing into this storm and up through it that is forcing the rain and hail to kind of split around it. So when we see that signature, that's a sign that the storm updraft is intensifying, and we are also looking at some rotation here as well. We'll go back over to our storm
signature, and it is heading right for Martinsburg. So Martinsburg, you are in line with this confirmed tornado, and this is the debris signature that we're showing you. There's the velocity scan, which is the wind speed and direction, and we're still seeing those reds and greens right next to each other. And we'll do one more circle to show you how this all kind of relates. There's the area of rotation. There's the debris signature. And then on our traditional reflectivity mode, there's that hook-shaped appendage. And that area of pink that you're seeing is offset from the hail core, which is now moving into Hedrick, all right? So that's off to the south and east, which means the radar is also in reflectivity mode, picking up on where we may see that debris.
Family members or anyone out near the Sigourney area, particularly just south of town, this is as clear cut as it gets. There is a large destructive tornado in progress. We've had the debris signature as high as 14,000 feet on this storm, looking at it on another source of radar, and that tornado is remaining in progress. For you folks in Ottumwa, you are all clear. This is well to the northeast of you. You still have some strong straight line winds that are headed your way. But again, the most dangerous part of this storm is now pushing up into Keokuk County here with a confirmed tornado that is just south of Sigourney. Here are the times of arrival. Let me pause that here so folks that are in the path can get a good look at this.
Again, this tornado warning has been extended a little bit further to the north too. You can really see that hook now. Look at that thing. That is impressive. Again, Kyoto, you need to be in your safe space right now. This is a very strong, violent tornado that's making its way your direction, and it has maintained its strength. You can see it on our velocities there. This is continuing to push upwards towards Kyoto. So we head out
there in the small town of Hedrick here in northeastern Wapello County. As you can see through the windows, there's no glass left in these windows. The roof is gone. The west side of the house here too, the wall is caved in, and what should be just to the west of the house as well is supposed to be a garage, and there's really no garage left either. We're looking inside what was the couples who lived here, their kitchen. We were told by some family members who are here right now cleaning up inside of the house that the couple who lived here, they were sheltering inside the shower, blown out basically off its hinges as well. We're going to take a more look at some of this damage here as we head through the evening down in this part of southeastern Iowa. For now, live northeast of Ottumwa, Zane Satry, KCCI.
The Martinsburg and Kyoto tornadoes were rated EF3 and EF4 respectively. A total of 26 tornadoes occurred in this outbreak. Thankfully, none of them fatal in Iowa. Less than a week after the March 31st outbreak, another significant severe weather potential loomed for roughly the same areas impacted days before. However, there were several notable differences to the April 4th setup that ended up mitigating the overall intensity and spatial coverage of the event. On the morning of the 4th, another large trough was moving from the Rockies into the plains with an 80 to 100 knot jet streak rounding the base of the trough. Unlike March 31st, this trough did not eject as quickly, nor did it reach full maturity by becoming negatively tilted and closing off. This meant much of the upper level dynamics needed to foster a major severe weather outbreak did not overspread as much of the warm sector. In fact, a slower moving trough ejection allowed for more warm and dry air to move from the higher terrain of the desert southwest and cap much of the warm sector. During the day on April 4th, a surface low moved from west central Kansas northeast towards central Iowa with an attendant warm front lifting from Missouri north into the state. Initially, the low-level air was very moist with the northward moving warm front, but a combination of the moisture being shallow plus strong daytime heating as a result of the skies clearing out from the elevated mixed layer moving in began to mix out dew points. This became a problem for tornadic storms as we need not only just warm low levels but also moisture in the presence of strong low level wind shear. Supercell storms did break out near the surface low in southwestern Iowa and northwest Missouri, but due to a lack of moisture, these storms had very high cloud bases. One of the supercells in southern Iowa would hit a Goldilocks zone at the right time and right place just before 7 p.m. A supercell storm that had been previously producing apple-sized hail near Osceola moved northeast closer to the warm front, where slightly greater amounts of low-level moisture had pooled. This, in conjunction with the cooling temperatures, allowed for cloud bases to drop. Winds in the low levels backed strongly and veered and increased with height, allowing for enhanced low-level shear to support a strongly rotating mesocyclone that eventually resulted in a rather tall elephant trunk tornado near Pleasantville, south of Des Moines. Photographer Dylan Kuhn and I began our storm chase near Pella around 3 p.m. We then traveled southwest toward a supercell moving up from southern Iowa toward the Osceola area. Originally, this storm was high-based, had a rotating wall cloud, but was primarily producing very large hail, up to 3.5 inches in diameter. The storm was still in a region struggling with low-level moisture. We positioned ourselves east of Osceola and let the core of the storm pass off to our north, where we were grazed by ping-pong to golf ball-sized hail. As the supercell moved into a region of better low-level moisture and stronger low-level wind shear, the threat for a tornado would increase. That is wrapped up tight. Just to the northeast of Lacona, Iowa, strong rear-flank downdraft winds wrap around the backside of a mesocyclone, thus tightening up the circulation, lowering pressures, and allowed a wall cloud and rapidly rotating funnel to descend from the cloud basis.
Take that.
Okay.
You got it?
Oh, shoot. Okay.
Do you want me to go this way or back on the paved road?
Go back on the paved road. We got to get. Oh, that's on the ground. Tornado on the ground. Looks like it's cycling. There's getting ready. It's going to be a new one.
This tornado leaves a 15-mile-long path of damage rated EF1 from Lacona to Pleasantville. There are no injuries or fatalities.
There's a funnel back there.
After a few weeks of relatively quieter weather, severe weather began to ramp back up in early May. On May 6th, broad southwest flow aloft returned to the central U.S. as a trough dug into the mountain west and a ridge amplified over the east. This pattern led to the formation of several surface lows from the northern plains to the central plains. Embedded within the flow aloft were several smaller short waves that would lead to several areas of widely spaced but intense severe thunderstorm activity in multiple locations across the central U.S. Being in Iowa, my target would be northern Missouri, where supercell thunderstorms were anticipated to develop east of a surface low and bulging dry line, then move east along a warm front. Initially, the greatest threat would be large hail, but as storms traveled into deeper moisture with a strengthening low-level jet by evening, the threat for tornadoes was also anticipated to increase. By 4 to 5 p.m., explosive thunderstorm development is underway in northern Missouri. These storms quickly take on supercellular characteristics. I make my way to the target area after attending a festival with friends in southern Iowa. I make my way toward the supercell's right flank and look back to the west toward a massive striated mesocyclone with a rotating wall cloud and a funnel descending underneath the wall cloud.
That's a funnel. Definitely a funnel cloud.
Wait, you don't see the gravy inside.
I mean, there are no currents wrapping around. I think so.
This is followed by a massive gust of rear flank downdraft winds that push out of the backside of the storm and begin to wrap around the mesocyclone from the south side. According to the Lemon and Doswell model for tornado genesis, the wrapping rear flank downdraft around the mesocyclone can play a pivotal role in tornado genesis. It can constrict the area of inflow, thus speeding it up into the mesocyclone and lowering pressures underneath the mesocyclone. In addition, as the inflow is constricted, the supercell's echotops collapse, thus bringing that vortex aloft in closer range to the surface. The rear flank downdraft can also act as a double-edged sword. If it advances too quickly due to the cold and dry nature of it, it can completely cut off inflow into the supercell's mesocyclone, thus making it elevated and completely preventing tornado genesis from occurring at all. The supercell will have to go through another cycle and attempt to produce a tornado. I continue to follow this cyclic supercell for another hour and a half across northern Missouri. Behind the lead supercell, another supercell develops, and this supercell predominantly produces very large hail up to the size of grapefruits. By 7:15 to 7:30, the lead supercell's mesocyclone really becomes organized. I continue to trail the backside of the mesocyclone in the rear flank downdraft region. By this point, I'm about 30 minutes west of Trenton, Missouri, where strong rear flank downdraft winds continue to stream into a massively striated mesocyclone. The only thing that this part of the storm chase was missing was a cone tornado dropping in the field right in front of me. Several gustnados, or dust whirls not connected to the mesocyclone, form along the rear flank downdraft gust front extending to the southwest of the supercell. Continue to follow the supercell east toward the Trenton area, where the mesocyclone now becomes incredibly sculpted and bowl-shaped. A funnel cloud begins to descend underneath the mesocyclone. Just before 8 p.m., rain curtains begin to wrap in and shroud my view of the mesocyclone as it passes through Trenton. Damage surveys would later reveal that an EF0 tornado was going through town at the moment I was filming this. Unfortunately though, my chase must end as I begin to get pounded with 2 to 3 inch sized hail moving in the town. After the Trenton tornado occurred, an EF2 tornado struck Linnaeus. This storm left a large swath of hail and wind damage as well across northern Missouri.
Okay, so we've got the emergency alerts going off here on the phone, but that's what we're looking at there, a wall cloud rapidly trying to organize. That's a tornado forming.
On May 13th, a decaying upper-level storm system moved into central Iowa. This system had been responsible for producing a significant tornado outbreak the day before in central Nebraska. Supercell thunderstorms would form along a warm front as low-level moisture and buoyancy maximized early in the afternoon. While there wasn't much in the way of speed shear, there was just enough to allow supercell thunderstorms to form. That, in conjunction with the low cloud basis and strong directional shear, would make it easy for weak and brief tornadoes to touch down. By 1 p.m., the first tornado warnings of the day are issued in Marion and Warren counties southeast of Des Moines. We work our way feverishly toward the storm and begin to intercept near Pleasantville.
Yeah, you see we've got left to right. It would be right over us right in there if there's rotation right there.
Upon arrival, we pull over and notice a large rotating wall cloud with rain curtains wrapping around it. This would be the first of many cyclic attempts of this supercell to produce a tornado. We would be on this storm for the next 3 hours.
That's it down there. Hey, let's get ready to head.
This supercell would go through multiple cycles of weakening and intensifying for the next 2 hours, teasing the horde of chasers following it. Things wouldn't change for us until closer to 3:30 that afternoon.
Chris, can you hear me? Yeah, we've got a rapidly rotating wall cloud with scud filaments underneath it. It's with that circulation you were talking about directly over Knoxville. This is the most impressive rotation we've seen for a while now. And there's no tornado, I repeat, there's no tornado on it, but that's what you're looking at in front of me right now, the rapidly rotating wall cloud there directly over Knoxville. We are a few miles northeast.
Closer to 3:30 p.m., the rear flank downdraft of the supercell begins to surge forward and the circulation tightens. A new tornado warning is issued for Marion and Mahaska counties. We are racing east on Highway 92 to get back in position ahead of the storm.
If it's in there, it's going to be back behind that rain curtain.
Now that we're back ahead in the right flank of the storm, we pull over next to a caravan of storm chasers and face the northwest. There is a large rotating wall cloud with rain curtains swirling around a broadly rotating mesocyclone. The vortex still has a very hard time condensing and tightening.
Okay, so we've got We've got the emergency alerts going off here on the phone, but that's what we're looking at there. A wall cloud rapidly trying to organize in front of me. I am between Knoxville and Harvey right now, just a few miles off of Highway 92, looking due northwest into this. And we may be trying to attempt tornado genesis for the umpteenth time today, so I will send it back to you.
We'll keep your picture up here, Trey. Yeah, thank you. Just over in the side. So Trey, right, is just between, or just west of Harvey, between there and Knoxville. I don't remember which direction his picture is looking at. Trey, can you tell me which direction you're
Now, west, north?
right now?
We're looking northwest.
Okay.
North.
Okay, so basically, yeah, he's
North.
looking straight up into the circulation, which is right here. You can see it's not on the ground, as Trey just said, but we're just going to have to keep watching it because it's trying, and that's what all these storms have been doing here, or this one kind of cluster of storms has been doing here all the way through the afternoon. Keeps trying to produce tornadoes. A couple of times it looks like it's been successful, just briefly. Nothing been able to sustain itself for a long time. So Trey was mentioning tornado genesis. When the tornado forms, we haven't had a lot of luck with tornado maintenance.
That's a tornado forming. Just before 4 p.m., a weak rain-wrapped tornado touches down to our west in Harvey, Iowa. A tubular funnel will soon make a brief appearance. Back there. Yeah. I'm gonna take a second. This bird fart tornado lifts as soon as it touches down, leaving a minimal trail of damage to the west of Harvey. After producing the Harvey tornado, that supercell would eventually die out. A new one would form 2 hours later in roughly the same spot. My storm-obsessed self would go right back out and chase it into the evening. The last storm of the day near Pleasantville has a persistent mesocyclone and gives me one more funnel before low-level instability wanes and the storms begin to diminish near sunset. That day, the wireless emergency alerts log on my phone counted 8 tornado warnings between the hours of 1 and 8 p.m. due to the slow-moving and cyclic nature of the supercell storms. There were a handful of tornadoes confirmed southeast of Des Moines and in parts of northwest Iowa, none of which were significant. May 25th came around and it was chasecation time. My friend Taryn Olson and I headed from Iowa to the south central plains where storms would brew for multiple days. On the way to Amarillo, Texas, we stopped at the Twist Tex Memorial Site in El Reno, Oklahoma to remember the tragedy that happened to engineer and veteran storm chasers Tim and Paul Samaras and Carl Young.
After an incredible few months of the polar and subtropical jets phasing and megatroughs sweeping across the U.S., this pattern came to an end in late May. An omega block developed over the Central Plains and Midwest states, forcing severe weather to get backed up essentially to the front range of the Rockies and southern high plains of West Texas and New Mexico. This led to a week of phenomenal mesoscale setups and incredible chasing in relatively the same location day after day. This was an event that many storm chasers referred to as Clovis Summer Camp. On the morning of May 26th, we woke up to loud thunderstorms moving through the Texas Panhandle as a result of an overnight mesoscale convective system. Knowing that the MCS was coming through the Panhandle during the morning, it became apparent that the chase day was going to end up in New Mexico. The MCS left a large mass of dense, rain-cooled air that would act as inhibition to surface-based thunderstorms from forming. High-resolution modeling depicted a scenario showing the outflow boundary darting south into West Texas and southeast New Mexico, on which new storm development would occur later that afternoon. Chasers like these outflow boundaries because they are mesoscale features that can locally enhance low-level wind shear, leading to a higher chance of tornadoes if storms interact with them favorably. The area that originally looked the most promising to target was Roswell, New Mexico. After a little sightseeing to pass the time, we traveled to Roswell. The outflow boundary did mostly as high-resolution models projected, except there was one problem. Visible satellites showed a large mass of persistent low-level stratus clouds forming in the wake of the boundary as it banked up against the Lincoln National Forest and Mescalero Reservation. The timing of these low-level clouds couldn't be worse. They formed and persisted from the late morning into the early afternoon, thus limiting low-level destabilization and preventing storms from forming in what otherwise would have been a sweet spot. We sat in Roswell and contemplated some secondary targets so that the day wouldn't be a complete bust. Areas to the north that had previously looked unfavorable from the morning cold pools started to look more promising. Skies cleared out faster in this region, which led to maximum daytime heating, and a combination of moisture advection led to new storms forming that evening. We had two options: pick a storm farther to the west with better low-level spin but less moisture, or pick a storm farther to the east with better moisture and less spin at the moment, but the spin would increase later on. We picked the storm to the east near Clovis. The supercell we got on produced a lengthy duration of hail ranging from the size of peas up to golf balls. The area had been previously dry, so the heavy rainfall and hail that fell eventually led to flash flooding. Here is some of our incredible video from the storm.
Still seems to be on the pea side. And now it's getting bigger. It's not giant size yet, though. These are bigger than peas. These are half. They're building more, that's why. There's some dimes in there. For sure.
Bigger quarters.
There was 0.8 inch spotted network. I saw that.
The winds are picking up. Look.
Yeah.
The long-duration hail and heavy rain led to multiple areas of flash flooding, and numerous fields were covered in water.
It's like salt flats out here after it rains.
The next day, we began with another morning mesoscale convective system in the Texas Panhandle, leaving a well-defined outflow boundary in place across eastern New Mexico and West Texas. New storms were projected to develop along this boundary and points to the west during the afternoon. Any storms that would redevelop and interact with this boundary and the strong low-level shear in place with it and to the south of it would have a chance at producing tornadoes. We soon made our way to eastern New Mexico to get in position. As winds in the mid and upper atmosphere increased, the amount of bulk shear for supercells increased throughout the afternoon. Unfortunately for tornadic activity, the amount of low-level speed and directional shear weakened, and a lessening of moisture led to higher cloud bases. Still, we saw some incredible supercells that day, even though the conditions for tornadoes became a little bit less favorable. After meeting up with a group of chasers in Fort Sumner, New Mexico, we started south toward thunderstorms forming south of town. These eventually grew upscale into a messy linear mode of convection as they moved toward the Texas-New Mexico border. We then turned back to the north to intercept the supercell right where we started that would ride the outflow boundary just northeast of Fort Sumner. This would produce one of the most gorgeous supercells I had ever seen. A large bowl-shaped rotating wall cloud hangs beneath the mesocyclone. To the right of the wall cloud is an inflow tail that is spinning horizontally. This inflow tail is an indication of streamwise vorticity current being ingested into the mesocyclone and tilted and stretched into the vertical. A surge of rear flank downdraft winds wrap around the backside of the storm, soon cutting off inflow into the mesocyclone. The storm begins to have a cold, choppy outflow appearance. Despite there being no tornado, this highly visible, photogenic mothership supercell was one of the best I had ever witnessed, especially with the terrain in eastern New Mexico. Later that evening, we watch a second supercell move in from the west. This storm is elevated as it moves atop and ingests very cold, dense air from the leading storm.
It was right over here, and
This is coming in from it
most could likely pull it into this area.
Tornado on the ground, 13 miles southeast of Stratford, Texas.
On the morning of May 28th, we targeted a mesoscale convective vortex moving into the Oklahoma Panhandle for new thunderstorm development expected to take place that afternoon. Shear profiles weren't great, and moisture and instability would be barely sufficient to allow for the potential of severe weather. After stopping for food in Perryton, we make our way to the Oklahoma Panhandle where storm development is already underway near the town of Beaver. Despite the less than optimal conditions, the storm we reached just to the southwest of Beaver looks fairly healthy upon arrival. It has a large rain-free base with numerous cloud-to-ground lightning strikes near the center of the updraft. A wall cloud soon descends underneath the mesocyclone. After several attempts at tornado genesis, this storm becomes a high precipitation mess and very outflow dominant. We then bail for another storm forming to the south. Later that afternoon, a decaying mesoscale convective system in southwest Oklahoma sends a large north to south oriented outflow boundary west toward the Texas Panhandle. As this outflow boundary banks up against the cap rock, enhanced upslope flow leads to the development of several widely spaced supercell thunderstorms. The westward moving outflow boundary results in increased and backed surface winds, which help to transport more moisture into the Texas Panhandle. Winds at 850 millibars also increase in response to a slight increase in the gradient of the height field due to lower heights in southeast Colorado. This results in the strengthening of the low-level jet at sunset, which helps to increase low-level speed and directional shear across the Panhandle. The hodograph derived from the vertical wind profile of the Amarillo radar shows pronounced clockwise curvature and some lengthening from 0 to 1 and 0 to 3 kilometers, which is an indication that storms forming in this region are in a much more favorable environment to possibly produce tornadoes. As we're driving west towards Stratford, we can see large amounts of dust being kicked up and pulled into the storm's inflow region. Upon turning north on a county road, we can see a large funnel descending underneath the wall cloud.
Slowly creeping.
Can't confirm ground circulation, but definitely a big funnel cloud. And we are 12 miles. The funnel cloud briefly becomes obscured by heavy rain as the rear flank downdraft wraps around the circulation. That's coming down. I'm going on mine. As the inflow tail, or a visual indicator of the streamline's vorticity current, lowers to the ground, my confidence for a tornado continues to increase. We do not want to go into that. That could be problematic. No, we're not doing that. I'm sending something to Amarillo.
Good idea. Is that a different funnel coming down?
No, that's the main one.
Oh, that is still the main one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost down. It's almost down. Okay, you can see it. It's coming. That's more than halfway. I'm almost ready to call it. I want to make sure. It's almost down. It is almost down. Oh my god. Oh, you see that might be a second one trying to go in there. That is almost on the ground. Okay, I think tornado on the ground. Yes. Tornado on the ground. 13 miles southeast of Stratford, Texas. We got it.
Tornado.
The rear rear flank downdraft soon cuts off inflow into the first tornado, and it occludes and weakens. We watch for a potential mesocyclone handoff to a new area just to the right.
So we have a rogue tornado on the left. That is the old circulation, but a mesocyclone handoff to the right. We're watching this closely. Looks like we may get a second one to form just to my east here.
The new mesocyclone becomes the dominant one of the evening. I count 2 additional small tornadoes from this storm. Otherwise, structure becomes the show.
That's getting very low. That's on the ground. Well, hold up. It was a brief touchdown. It's close. Hey, Taryn, there's a big funnel in there. There's a big funnel. I can see it on contrast.
Soon, our retrograding supercell is overtaken by a surging squall line of severe storms from the northwest. This would provide us an epic sunset as the sky turned a fiery orange with a southward surging shelf cloud and a whale's mouth.
It's weird to. Yeah, I want to stay here and like kind of stay close to everything, but it's like, where will this spin up occur when it does? There you go. Florian's staying
Right.
Yep. Then they'll be able to pass. This is footage right here. The sun is coming through.
Get it, shoot it.
Gosh. This is, look at that.
Oh my gosh.
That's even on like my.
One sign of a good chase is when you bring part of the earth back with you. On our way back, I find a tumbleweed lodged in the front bumper of the car. As summer set in, a massive death ridge set in over the Midwest and the Deep South, bringing an end to storms for this part of the country. This led to worsening drought and searing heat, especially for places like the Corn Belt. Due to this weather pattern setting up, I only had a handful of opportunities to see storms in Iowa during the summer, which is normally our most convectively active period during the year. My final chase of the year was this brief spin-up tornado just east of Newton, Iowa, near the Iowa Speedway.
Rapidly rotating wall cloud crossing I-80 near Newton. Rapid rotation. Rapid rotation. This is getting ready to tornado on me. Tornado's about to come over me, folks. Okay, this is rapid rotation. Rapid rotation. It's coming down. It's coming down. Wind's picking up. It's coming down. Oh my God, tornado on the ground. Tornado. Tornado on the ground. Tornado on the ground crossing I-80 right now near Newton. We got a ground circulation. Ground circulation. Wind is picking up. Weak tornado. Weak tornado crossing I-80. Tornado crossing I-80 in Newton right now. Look at that.
This year I had the opportunity to film and photograph the Northern Lights with a new DSLR. Thanks for watching this presentation, and I hope everyone has a great and safe 2024. Chase on!